Hello everybody, Brandon here coming to you again from the channel. I have a commission walkthrough for you this time, a Blueridge sunset scene with a little bit of a meadow in the front and a waterfall. This was a commission request, very specific for a customer. So let's get to watching my process for getting that one done now. So this was a pretty large canvas for this project. This is a 24 by 36. So I'm starting here with a large 2-inch just wash brush to put in a lot of color and a lot of space. The sky here was going to be a sunset scene with a lot of purples in it. Going to come back with some cloud formations and just a tiny little bit of sun peeking through at the end for this. So a lot of purple going in, and then the distant Blueridge mountain range that I'm about to start in here is also a lot of blue here for the distant range. That's, I guess, why they call it Blueridge Mountains. But sunset scenes out there on the Blueridge, they definitely have a blue coloration to them. So you see me putting that color in here now. Again, still using the 2-inch wash brush, just getting a basic background for where I'm going to be putting everything and covering a lot of ground with this larger brush. Ultimately, the customer ended up sending me a photo of his actual mountain range that he can see from his backyard. So I ended up, you'll see the finished product at the end where I painted his very specific mountain range in there. Now moving to the foreground here, still using the same wash brush here. This is going to be a tree line and a meadow in the front, a little bit of a waterfall and a small stream coming through. So I'm still using this large 2-inch brush, but I'm kind of using the edges and angles of it here to create some tree texture and shapes, really, even though it's still just a dark basic mix of some green and some brown, some black in there to create the background, so I can come back in and ultimately add my highlights and detail to define out some individual things once I lay all this in. The meadow here is going to ultimately have a lot of wildflowers in it, so I'm just putting in a little bit of color here to find out where that's going to be. Nothing real specific again, and then we'll come back later and put some wildflowers in there. You can see that Blueridge mountain range there. Again, that was just very quickly putting in would be some distant mountains, no detail at all, but I ultimately will come back in and change all that once the customer sent me his photo of his actual mountain range. For now, I am with a smaller 1-inch brush putting in individual cloud shapes here, just putting in some highlights here, a little bit of titanium white towards the top edge, then putting in some more blues and purples down through the center, and then I will put in just a few places where some a highlight so we can see that there is something here that is closer to us than what that distant tree line is showing. Again, not a ton of highlight, just enough that we can tell that they're there, and that we can see something going on, that little bit of sunlight that's poking through in this sunset is catching. I'll end up using that exact same process here on the left to define out those bushes and trees on that hillside where the waterfall is coming down. And I'm also using now that exact same process on these wildflowers, and the whole foreground will be filled with these. So a variety of colors on these Blueridge wildflowers, and I'm using a small fan brush here to get this done. But my process is the same. I put in a darker value of the color I want first. Then I come back on each individual flower with a brighter highlight color of that and touch it in with the tips and corners of this fan brush to create those wildflowers. So my process, same with the trees, same with the flowers, different brush, using something smaller for the smaller detail. Now right in here in this stream, I wanted to create a little bit of a step down of about a little 1 to 2 foot little waterfall drop right in that area. So I'm creating a little bit of a ledge right there with some rock that I'm bringing in, and then I will just spill a little bit of water over in that little spot there in the middle to create a little bit of a step down in the water, that stream that's running right in that particular area. Now is our Bob Ross get crazy moment here, laying a big tree in. So this is the technique that I use for all of them, regardless of what the tree is. I put in the darker values first. And so I'm defining out individual limbs here at this point, using the darker greens and browns. Still using my small fan brush to create these, and just very randomly laying things in. Nothing real specific because these trees are all different shapes and sizes, so just kind of haphazardly sticking them in there. Up here on the skyline, I'm being a little more detail oriented because you can see those a little bit easier against that that background. So I wanted to make them, a few of those in there, a little more sparse than others, and then some others that are a lot more full. So just keeping it random, letting the brush just kind of fall and go wherever. Working a little fast when I'm doing this, just because if you take too much time, I feel here, you don't get as random of a texture. So I kind of speed my process up when I'm randomly laying these tree limbs in. And then here, just starting to bring in a tiny little bit more green so you can see it, and then a little bit of the shadow it's creating from that sunset.